So getting straight into it, I'd like to disclaim the fact that I don't claim to know anything clear about this. Whether or not you've been keeping up with this journey that I'm on regarding initiation, officiating myself as a healer, as I've just explained, none of that is official yet. So this is really all just me pretty much yapping. It's a stream thought of yap, and with the intention of engagement and discussion, especially considering that we are in times of major solar flares, major astrological shifts, and I just feel like this topic of conversation is necessary, not just for us as a collective, but for me to kind of ground myself with regards to everything that's happening, everything that I'm feeling physically, and to ground ourselves as a community with the information that's been spreading online, because I do think that there is some kind of delusion with regards to the things that we're talking about around ascension symptoms. And I honestly see us traveling into a future where a lot of us become diagnosed with very interesting chronic illnesses that we could have gotten ahead of had we assumed that our symptoms were serious and not symptoms of ascension because of what we saw via social media. So while this is a topic about ascension symptoms, this is also a topic about discernment, because we're going to need it in this information age full of distractions. I think that it'll be important to know how to figure out what discernment is, what it feels like within. So I'm going to say my experience, and then if this is something that calls to you to engage on, then please do leave a comment. Drag me if you must. This is a friendly debate. I'm really trying to get information going. So my experience with ascension symptoms has been pretty strange and ongoing for about 4 years now, since about 2020. And they come in as the usual stuff, the headaches, the achy body, joints. I saw the other day that apparently ascension symptoms can also come in the form of tooth problems, like toothaches and stuff, which I find very interesting and is another part of the thin line. I think falls into the package of potential delusion, because teeth are teeth and they are connected to major points of our body, not just emotional points, but literal physical points, so that they're very easy to overlook. And they are definitely one of those issues that creep up on you and show up in surprise if you go too long without getting them checked out. All of this to say that I do have a thing with my teeth. I have not kept up with going to the dentist or going to the doctor. My point of discernment and reasoning, to begin, I do feel the symptoms, and I don't immediately assume that they are ascension symptoms. I normally freak the fuck out at first, and then I go onto the internet and I try to search what they could be, what it could mean. And every time I search what I may potentially have, I try to match it with searching a treatment. And when I do try to find the treatment, they normally go along the lines of just treating the symptom and not treating the potential thing that I have. Sometimes the thing that I'll land up on that it says that I have is chronic, untreatable, and all I can really do is treat the symptoms. And I'm actually reading a book by Sophie Strand called The Body is a Doorway, where she writes about what happens if all you can do is treat the symptoms, if you're faced with a chronic illness and you can't do anything but treat the little things that you feel. That's the angle that I'm taking with the things that I sometimes think I have or I don't. It's given me this umbrella way to approach whatever I may have, ascension symptoms or not, to say that if whatever I feel is getting in the way of my day-to-day functions, then it's flagged. And then if what I flagged persists for more than 2 days, that's cause for me to be a little bit stressed out, maybe lean on a medicine or a herbal treatment. I'm a very holistic gal. I rely heavily on the herbs. And if that doesn't work out after about 10 days, then that's cause to see a doctor. The way that I understand the medical system and big pharma to work is that they treat, as I mentioned, they treat your symptoms and not the actual main disease, but they're also treating it with the idea of you to stay functional so that you can get back to work. I do not have those kind of obligations, so I don't feel tied to the need to survive. I'm not functioning on the idea of survival, which I think affects the way that I approach any symptoms or potential diseases that I try to diagnose myself with. Obviously, if I were in a different case, different scenario, different strokes for different folks. So this will obviously be different for you watching if you are in a 9 to 5 if you have very strict day-to-day obligations. I don't, which like I've said, makes it much easier for me to handle and go slower with the symptoms that I feel and with my experiences. I also want to add that I believe that the general idea of Ascension symptoms can be understood from the lens of the body as a machine and as a living organism of its own that communicates. All of that to say that we should be listening to our bodies as such, as organisms that communicate and that are trying to say something. There are all sorts of different systems that allow you to understand exactly what the body is saying, with each tooth, for example, connecting to some psychological pain, or a finger or a body part connecting to some internal organ. Like, it's nice to view the body that way, and that's how I've done it as well, which helps to kind of blend Ascension symptoms and potential diagnostic diseases into one, so that neither one is villainized and I'm like living in the middle of those two experiences. It's really important to remember that while we are walking into this new spiritual world where everything is divine and woo woo woo, we've also been around for thousands and thousands of years, and the information that is available through the science and the research and the big pharma is still extremely credible. Although it has tended to this point of being very greed-driven, there is still research that is valid and that we can't forget through this process of ascending, and that I hope that we can all remember, so that we don't walk into this awkward future where we all end up being sick or in some other awful state because we thought what was happening to us now was just ascension. No, we could genuinely be chronically ill. But like I said, I do a timeline thing, I work with herbs, and I do honestly pray a lot so that I arrive to a final point of saying that whatever does end up happening to me, should I end up with some kind of chronic illness that I could have checked now through a doctor or something, that it simply is what it is. There's only so many things that my little human mind can grasp in this day and age, and there's only so many things I can do, and I trust that I've got myself covered, I've got what I can covered, and my angels, the God that I believe in, has covered the rest. So a lot of faith, a lot of hope that everything is happening as it should, and a lot of trusting in my story and in my own self to be able to make a proper decision, trusting myself to be responsible with myself. I think that's also a very main character of discernment, is to trust yourself. But be careful. I really think that we should be really careful about these things that we label Ascension symptoms. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments what you think about what I've said.